On 14 August 2005, an incident happened that got the plane in silence. Helios Airways Flight 522 was going from Larnaca to Athens, Greece. The plane was a 737, and there and the plane was a 737, and the journey takes around only 1 hour and 30 minutes. So the 737 Helios Airways Flight 522 took off from London and landed in Larnaca International Airport. The crew of that flight complained that there was a problem at the back of the aircraft near the backside door in the back of the aircraft. So the engineers did one mistake that was going to impact this flight from Larnaca to Athens. They put the oxygen panel to manual. So what is an oxygen panel? Well, an oxygen panel is something that the pilot before the flight, it's always kept in auto. Normally it's kept in auto, so that when the plane goes higher than 10,000 feet, it is always in auto. So that when the plane goes higher than 10,000 feet, the engines can supply oxygen to the passengers. But if you keep it in manual, this means that when you go higher than 10,000 feet, it will not supply the oxygen needed to the passengers. So the passengers may feel unconscious. That's why it's very important to check the oxygen panel before takeoff. Any related thing, oxygen thing before takeoff. So now the engineer on the ground manually checked the oxygen. For that, he switched it to manual. Now, after checking it, he forgot to put the oxygen panel back to auto. Means that now Helios Airways was now about to be an incident flight, because that ground engineer did not put it back to auto. But there was still one chance that the captain or the first officer would see. So on 14th of August, the 121 passengers boarded the flight. 6 crew and 115 passengers boarded the flight. The German captain, had around 16,000 flight hours, including 5,900 hours on the 737-800. The first officer had a total flying experience of around 7,000 flight hours, although he had 79,000 flying experience in the airline and 7,000 the Boeing 737. The captain and the first officer boarded the flight. They checked everything, but unfortunately they didn't check the oxygen panel because it was still on manual. So after the pre-flight checks, they boarded their passengers, and now the time starts ticking, because that's where the seriousness of the situation was very serious. Now the captain closes all doors, and the stairs have been removed from the aircraft. Now the time is ticking. The plane goes towards the runway. He checks everything before the takeoff. Before takeoff checks, before start check. Two he had two things to realize that he had chance to identify the problem in before start checklist, before taxi checklist, and before takeoff checklist. But unfortunately, on those three checks, the captain did not identify the problem right away. Now the plane takes off to the skies, and after 10 minutes of climbing, he reaches 12,000 feet. Now, what what happened was that after a few minutes of reaching that altitude, the altitude alarm rings. Sounds like tat tat tat, means that you have went higher than expected, but your oxygen panel is still on manual. But the captain, but the captain was saying that this was a takeoff configuration alarm. So why did it ring why didn't it ring while the plane was on the ground? Well, unfortunately, this wasn't a takeoff configuration alarm. This was the cabin altitude alarm. When the plane goes higher than 10,000 feet, the cabin altitude alarm alerts the pilot that you have went above 10,000 feet and you have not switched the oxygen panel to auto. Now, what is a takeoff configuration? Well, example, your plane is on the runway. Okay, so now your speed brake is armed and you're trying to take off. So the takeoff configuration alarm will ring because for you to figure out that something is wrong and the plane cannot take off safely. So now the cabin altitude alarm rings, and the captain doesn't know that the oxygen masks have deployed from the ceiling above, and the passengers are trying to understand what is going on. Now the flight goes higher and higher and higher, because altitude alarm gets your attention. Do let you know that that the oxygen panel is in manual. So it tells you to decrease your altitude immediately, because if you don't, then the passengers will be unconscious. But the captain doesn't respond to that, and goes on further and further and further. Slowly 1 hour has passed to around 3 hours, and then the air traffic control is now concerned about the flight. So sends the fighter jets. They send the fighter jets and to intercept the Helios airplane. Now, if it was going through the ocean, they would attack. But if it was going through a city, they would not attack. So they saw that the plane was going through the ocean, so they didn't attack the airplane. The plane was flying over the ocean. That's why they didn't fire it through a missile. But the most troubling was that when they got to that site, they saw the captain, the first officer, were unconscious, and the passengers also were unconscious because the oxygen ran out because of the rapid decompression up, so the oxygen ran out. And then the plane was just flying through autopilot, and now it was reaching Athens, Greece. So, and they saw one person grabbing some oxygen bottles and entering the flight deck. That person indeed was flight attendant Andreas Podromo. He had gone swimming, and he had practiced breathing for a long time. So in this situation, he kept breathing until his oxygen bottle also ran out. He shouted, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday, Helios Airways Flight 522, we need help." But no one heard him. And then slowly, the left engine, both of the engines of the 737 died out. And then when the left engine died out, the plane started to turn and the autopilot started to disconnect. After that, then the right engine soon followed, and the plane fell down from cruising altitude to crash. The Helios Airways flight crashed. Sadly, all 121 passengers died, including the crew, and this was the horrific crash of Helios Airways Flight 522. Good day.